the latest, I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Staples has great prices on everything you need for back to school. Now save up to 60% on select notebooks, markers, and more. At Staples, school savings are always in session. Offer ends July 29. Prices may vary in-store and online. School on, save on at Staples.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The NBA approved 2 rules changes for next season that could have a major impact. Coaches will be allowed a second challenge if their first one is successful. Coaches were limited to 1 challenge of a referee's call. The NBA also passed a new flopping rule. Players hit with a flopping charge will get a technical foul. The opposing team will get a free throw attempt and possession of the ball. The NBA experimented with the new flopping rule in the Summer League in Las Vegas. NBA execs were tired of seeing players fall to the floor in an attempt to draw a foul. At least 5 players from HBCU schools were selected in the Major League Baseball draft, which ended on Tuesday. The first HBCU player taken was Nolan Santos, a right-handed pitcher at Bethune-Cookman. Santos was chosen by the Minnesota Twins. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 is dedicated to empowering our communities by providing progressive talk radio for our audience. We strive to be an intersectional voice for the voiceless. As a Black-owned and operated station, we are committed to highlighting diverse perspectives and creating safe spaces for meaningful dialogue. We believe that everyone has something unique to bring to these political, economic, social, and cultural conversations, and we don't shy away from the hard conversations about current events. We endeavor to be a beacon of hope and understanding, while boldly challenging listeners to think more deeply about difficult topics that impact us all. With this in mind, our mission statement at KBLA Talk 1580 is simple: to create an inclusive platform that promotes civil discourse through honest dialogue and encourages personal growth among our listeners, so they can become the active agents of change. Our vision is to establish ourselves as the premier radio network with relevant programming across the beloved community, connecting people through shared experiences and collective power for lasting impact beyond these challenging times.
Live from Leimert Park, USA, I'm Tavis, Smiley. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580. So glad to see you and me back in stride again. Our phone number, 1-800-920-1580, 1-800-920-1580. All of our socials can be found at KBLA 1580. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, everything at KBLA 1580. Let me also invite you to download our app right now at KBLA 1580. Download the app and listen to us live anywhere in the world, but only by downloading our app right now at KBLA 1580. Should you miss us any day in real time, check out the podcast of our program by going to the app, the website, Anchor, Spotify, Apple, so many places to get the podcast and listen at your leisure should you miss us any day in real time. But I am delighted to have you on live with us today for the next 3 hours. You can also watch the live stream of this program by tapping on the KBLA TV icon on our app or by going to our YouTube channel. And let me also invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley and get Twitter updates at Tavis Smiley. Another great show on tap for you today in our second hour. From the ongoing Hollywood writers' strike to the current UPS strike and a recent hotel workers' strike, one common thread emerges. These unions are not merely bargaining with their employers. They are challenging the very foundations of extreme capitalism. A conversation then in hour two with former New York Times Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter David K. Johnston about how American society has engineered a troubling trend of downward mobility. In our third hour, why do some tragedies capture our attention and empathy more than others? Why does one tragedy, say the recent submersible accident near the Titanic wreckage, ignite worldwide compassion, while the sinking of a boat packed with migrants off the coast of Greece seemingly fades into obscurity? Dr. Jessica Gall-Myrick of Penn State University joins us today in hour three. But we commence today's program talking politics and more with our regular contributor, civil rights lawyer and towering public intellectual Connie Rice. Connie Rice, how are you today?
Hey, I'm setting up Indictment Watch headquarters. I'm doing fine. How are you, Tavis?
Indictment.
We got 2 indictments, and a verdict of legal liability and counting.
Yeah, it is, and counting is the operative phrase, right? And counting. So let me start there. That's the obvious. There's a lot to talk about in this hour, but let me go right there. So Trump's lawyers yesterday filed papers to seek an indefinite postponement of this classified documents trial. To your point, any number of these things. We're talking now about the Mar-a-Lago stuff. So they, again, filed paperwork yesterday asking the judge who was appointed by Trump, as you well know, to postpone this trial. When you were last on, the date had been set of August 14th. Since you were on, that date got pushed to December. And now they're asking for that trial to be postponed indefinitely. There are all kinds of tentacles that offshoot that decision, whatever it may be. But I'll toss the microphone to you and let you unpack what you see here.
Well, Tavis, it's hard. You got to postpone your criminal indictment trial if you're running for president, right? You don't have time to go do a criminal trial. You can run it for. It's the most absurd thing you've ever heard. Okay, this man is then indicted for stealing nuclear secrets, keeping them from being returned to the government. He stole war plans. He stole so many documents he had to store them in a bathroom at his resort, and kept the government from finding them. Lied about it to his attorneys, to the DOJ, to the National Archives. If there's any possibility of a fair jury in Florida, there's almost no doubt that this evidence is overwhelming, and he could very well stand to be convicted of these acts of stealing defense documents and endangering national security. That trial, he's now saying, because I'm running for president, we shouldn't have the trial before the election. When he's running, the position he's running for is president of the United States, which means he would have total power over nuclear secrets that he stole. Mm-hmm. But this is a real test for the judge. This judge was really smacked down in a way I've never seen a federal district court judge be slapped down, when she bent over backwards to create a new standard that's for Trump in the early stages of the investigation, when they served the warrant on Mar-a-Lago to go after the stolen nuclear secrets and other defense documents. Well, this judge, Judge Cannon, actually said, well, because he's a former president, this could harm his reputation, and we have to create a special standard for former presidents. And even the 11th Circuit said that's ridiculous. So this is a judge who actually created a new standard for Trump, and we're wondering this motion to push the trial beyond the 2024 election. This is a real test for her, because what Trump is doing is he's throwing down the gauntlet to her and saying, "Are you with me or not?" Mm-hmm. Because if she says yes to this, then we're going to know that she's going to continue to push the scales, put her thumb on the scales for him to, for the jury selection, for which evidence can be used. She can really tank this trial for him. And then we've got the jury to worry about too. But this motion that you're talking about right now, which is to postpone the date indefinitely, it's absurd on its face, and it's clear Trump is, he's got that feral intelligence. He knows he can't win legally if there's a fair trial. So he's not running a legal defense. He's running a political defense. And that's why he's running for president again. and this is his strategy to stay out of jail because he knows he stands a high chance of being convicted if there's a fair jury and a fair trial. And this is his get-out-of-jail-free strategy, which is a political strategy, not a legal strategy.
Just getting started with Connie Rice, a great deal more to talk about in this hour. When we come forward, a few more things I want to probe her about vis-a-vis the judge and the jury, ultimately, in this case, regarding these documents at Mar-a-Lago. And again, that's just the first thing on my docket in this hour, so a lot of ground to cover in this hour with Connie Rice on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about. Good thing we've got 3 hours. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
You're listening to K-Drip, where we play all the best classic water-wasting hits like watering your lawn during the hottest time of the day and leaky faucets. They're tunes from another time because now that we face a hotter, drier future, every drop counts. Despite an extremely wet winter, keep using less water, fixing leaks, and reusing indoor water for your garden. Visit SaveOurWater.com for more ways to conserve. Up next, brushing your teeth with the water on. K-Drip.
Have you heard about Lendistry? Lendistry is a national black-led small business lender that is headquartered right here in LA. Once you've started your business, Lendistry provides flexible financing options starting at $50,000 to help you access the affordable capital needed to grow. Whether financing is needed to increase working capital, acquire a business, purchase inventory and equipment, or refinance debt, Lendistry has a solution for you. Lending products range from traditional business term loans and non-revolving lines of credit to SBA 7A loans and commercial real estate financing. Lendistry's pre-application process is simple and does not impact your credit score. Visit lendistry.com/KBLA to learn more and to get started with an application right from the website.
If this were a Reese's TV ad, you'd be staring at a Reese's peanut butter cup. And sure, my voice is peanut buttery smooth, but still, you need to see the peanut butter cups, right? No? I can really just say Reese's and you'll go get some? Okay. Reese's. 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 Really working, actually. Reese's. Reese's. I'm on to something. Reese's. Reese's. Reese's.
At Lowe's, we're always bringing pros more ways to save. Right now, get up to 40% off select bathroom faucets and vanities. Plus, buy Southwire Romex Simple 12-gauge indoor wire at our everyday low price of $109. Head to your local Lowe's or visit us at Lowes.com for more deals you can't beat. Because Lowe's knows savings, Lowe's knows pros. Valid 7/6 through 7/12 while supplies last. Selection varies by location. U.S. only.
Interrogating your assumptions and expanding your inventory of ideas. Let's get back to Tavis Smiley on KBLA Talk 1580.
So, Connie Rice, I hear the point you're making earlier about the political strategy that Donald Trump is running now, asking for this trial to be postponed indefinitely. It's a political strategy, not a legal strategy. But let me come to the latter, the legal strategy, and just press you on this. One of the things that his lawyers argued was that the trial should not begin. They didn't ask for a specific date. They asked for an indefinite suspension, but a delay, I should say. But they argued that the trial should not begin until all of these substantive motions have been presented and adjudicated. Number one. Number two, they in their plea, if you will, laid out in detail all of the documents they have to go through. And there are thousands, tens of thousands of documents. As you well know, being a brilliant civil rights attorney, there are tens of thousands of documents they do, in fact, have to go through. So just the sheer volume of discovery in this case, number one. And then, as I said earlier, they're asking for this trial not to begin until all the substantive motions have been presented and adjudicated, and you know there'll be a plethora of those. Is that not a fair ask? Is that not typical in a trial? There is no trial of this nature. There's never been anything like it. But what's unfair about that ask?
Because you set the trial date and then work toward making sure you meet that trial date. And if there's a reason to postpone it, you'll know at that point, and then you postpone it at that point. He's not, that can be a reason to postpone a set date. that we haven't gotten it through.
Mm-hmm.
But these lawyers haven't even complied with the judge's first order, which was, look, get your security clearances, lawyers. I want you all to have your paperwork in to get your security clearances so you can examine this classified evidence. And his lawyers haven't even done that, and they've had plenty of time to do that. They said they were too busy.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's not reasonable. Yeah, the trial date is set, and your job as a lawyer is to get through the discovery phases. If you've made every reasonable effort and done your best efforts to comply with, to get ready in time for the date, and it's still not feasible, then you go, at that point, you file a motion to postpone or to push it out a little bit. But this notion of putting it beyond the election, that tells you that it's a political strategy. And it's not a legal strategy, because you don't do that in a trial. That's not the way trials are run.
Yeah. To your earlier point about I'll come back to the judge in a second. Let me jump ahead to the jury that will be seated whenever we get to that point, whatever that date is. The Department of Justice made this decision to have this trial in Florida. They could have gone another route. This is their decision to do this in Florida. Why did they choose to do that? And why do we think that Trump in any part of Florida can get a fair trial?
They chose Florida because most of the actions that they're challenging happened in Florida. And while some of the actions that are connected to the taking of the documents and moving them down to Mar-a-Lago and then keeping the FBI and the archives and everybody else from getting them back, most of that happened in Florida. And so there is a rule that you have to have the trial in the locus of where the criminal activity took place. Mm-hmm. Or some related. Now, there are related venues. There's Washington, and that's where he probably didn't have the right to take the documents in the first place. But then you raise a real argument about the proper venue, the proper place to hold the trial. And I don't think that the prosecutors wanted to waste their time on that. They need a speedy trial for the very reasons Trump doesn't want one. Mm-hmm. Jack Smith, the key prosecutor in these matters against Trump, he knows it's very, very important to get this trial completed before the next election. Trump knows it's very important not to have a verdict before the next election. Mm-hmm. So, the venue question, where to hold the trial, I think that they were trying to avoid a whole bunch of, 7 months delay going up and down the court ladder, fighting about where. Let's just do it.
Okay. So it's one thing to ask you, as I just did, about a fair jury, a fair trial in Florida. It's quite another question to ask, as I will now, why they think they can get a conviction in Florida. This is, after all, Florida. Why do they think they can get a conviction in Florida?
I think they think the evidence is so overwhelming that even if you get, folks who are predisposed to supporting Trump I don't think they're going to try to let on. I think they're going to try to block real MAGA nuts, the folks who can't, if Trump told them the sky was purple, they'd believe it. Mm-hmm. I don't think they're going to get cult members on the jury. But I think what they're banking on is that this evidence is so strong that if you get jurors who are going to pay attention to their oaths as they raise their hand and say they're going to, look at the facts and the law and leave all their political baggage out, that's what you have to do with any jury. But you raise the right question. We're not in normal times, and Florida is not a normal venue. Okay, especially the area of Florida where his Mar-a-Lago resort is.
Right.
That's not just Trump country. That's loony bins Trump country. And so what they're going to have to do when they select the jury, and Johnny Cochran taught me how to select juries, and Johnny was brilliant even before he created the science of jury selection. He would ask folks about their TV programs before, everybody else was like, where do you live? And, Johnny knew.
What do you watch? What do you watch? Yeah.
Johnny was brilliant. He had ways of getting to how you think and where you fall politically. And he could even tell which black church you went to, how religious you were. He did a CAT scan of the prospective juror, and he really knew how to talk to a jury. There's nobody like him. I don't know that Jack Smith has Johnny Cochran's skills, but he's going to have to probe to see whether, where do you get your news from? If you're listening to a broadcaster like Fox News, you're not getting news. Mm-hmm. You're getting propaganda. So, in these highly partisan times, when you're selecting a jury, you've got to go deeper. You've got to figure out, is this a person who, even if they listen to Fox News or they listen to QAnon, can they still even tell what's real, what's not real? Can they be an impartial juror who can weigh the facts of the law? That's harder to do in Florida when you have a case that involves an inherently political set of physics. If you're putting a former president on trial, that's inherently political.
Yeah.
So you raised the right question, Tavis, which is it even possible? It's a question mark for me, given the political times we're in.
Yeah, pardon the pun. The jury is still out on that question.
Exactly.
We started our conversation 20 minutes ago by you telling us, sharing with us that you're setting up your indictment watch party at your house for indictment plural, I should say, indictments party watching. And one of the things that I want to probe you on regarding Trump, let me move away now from the Mar-a-Lago case to the DOJ, Department of Justice, announcing that they no longer believe that Trump should have immunity from the E. Jean Carroll defamation lawsuit. So again, so many Trump cases, it's hard to keep track of all of them. But this is big news, that the Department of Justice no longer believes that Trump should have immunity from the E. Jean Carroll defamation lawsuit. So that allows another lawsuit to advance. Tell me about this one.
Well, she won her first action against him when she got the verdict for legal liability for sexual assault. Mm-hmm. Then he went on that ridiculous CNN town hall and gave him a Trump rally on TV. And he defamed her all over again a day after he lost that trial. Mm-hmm. So she's gone back into court. And she says, look, we already proved liability. Obviously, the amount of money that he was penalized with isn't enough to shut him up. So she's going in for even additional money. When she first sued, the the Department of Justice, actually entered the case and said, no, he has immunity. Because
he's president. Because he's president.
Because he's president.
Okay.
And now the Justice Department is saying, not only was that wrong, we're retracting any kind of filings and we're changing our position. So that's almost, he's been found legally liable for sexual assault against E. Jean Carroll. The indictments that are really that are central to the functioning of the democracy and whether we're going to hold on to our democracy, because these trials aren't just going after Trump. I mean, I make light of it and I laugh about it, but this is serious business. We're talking about whether the rule of law is even going to matter. And African Americans, we've been trying to get the just rule of law for 400 years. And so our battle. This is about our survival as a persecuted minority in this country. And if you don't have the rule of law, there's no defense. You can have KKK terrorism with 5,000 lynchings and no one ever being tried. That's totalitarianism. That's what happens when you don't have the rule of law. We've already lived under a system in America where there was no rule of law. Nothing protected us. They could just kill us with impunity. And I mean just average citizens. Average white people had the right to kill black people. And so that's what this fight is about. It's about the rule of law. That's what protects us. So these trials are about the integrity of the democracy, rule of law, constitutional democracy, and whether one man wrecking ball has the right to destroy that system. And that's what we're fighting for. Mm. So it's not just about a case. So the indictments that really matter are the January 6th. What, if any, liability does Trump have for inciting a violent insurrection that tried to destroy the peaceful transfer of power? And did. It disrupted it. Mm-hmm. That's for the first time. So that violent mob insurrection on January 6th of 2021, that's the indictment that I think goes to the heart of, if you can't get him on seditious conspiracy for that, they got to try for that. That's what, and then you got the Georgia inter-election interference.
Let me ask you about that one. And I promise I've got other stuff that I want to talk about other than Trump. But there is, to your point, there's so much Trump news of late, in the last 24 hours, in fact, that I have to unpack some of this and we'll move on past down to Trump. But since you mentioned Fannie Willis in Georgia, that grand jury is back to work there. How central, you sort of just a moment ago sort of, I wouldn't say rated, but you gave us a sense of how important you think these various cases are. again, the grand jury in Fulton County back to work. Handicap that case for me at this point.
I think because she warned the courts to clear the courtroom in August, I think she's ready to have her second jury act on the indictments of her first grand jury, and issue the indictments in August. Indictments, and I think she's going big because it's taken this long. She's going for a RICO. I'm guessing she's going for a RICO, a sort of organized crime conspiracy with this fake elector scheme where he had folks, pretending to be the electors of their states for the and was going to, if he couldn't get the violent mob was the last resort. Before that was this fake elector scheme where you just go into Washington and say, no, we have the real electors here, and they're for Trump, not Biden, even though Biden won that state's election. So that scheme, and where he called down to Raffensperger in Georgia and said, look, I only need 11,728 votes. So just find me the 11,000 votes. Everybody remembers that tape. That's what that case is about. And I think that's going to come out in August. So that case is related to the January 6th. He tried everything. He tried to get DOJ he tried to get the Department of Defense to seize the election machines. He tried to get Pence to unilaterally reverse the election. He tried at least 12 different things before he did the violent mob. This was the penultimate. This was the next one. So that's also an important case to think. It's about democracy. It's about the rule of law. It's about the integrity of our elections. And of course, for African Americans, we know that getting us out of the picture, our voter suppression, taking away our drop boxes, making sure we can't do that, getting rid of the black vote is part of that strategy of establishing authoritarian rule in this country.
Yep. Got 2 minutes left here before news, traffic, and sports. We'll continue with other topics on the other side. Let me close this Trump conversation, as it were, with this as the exit question. The exit question you've heard me ask you plenty times, and I'll ask once more, because as this story continues to develop, I keep asking you, do you see anything yet that stops Trump from being the presumptive Republican nominee today?
And we don't need the 2 minutes. The answer is no. See, absolutely nothing.
See, that's what always kills me, Connie, about these conversations. You lay out this stuff so brilliantly, and it's so abundantly clear how what he has done is a threat to our very democracy. And yet, every time I ask you that question, you do not move off that point. That you still, I feel like we're in a boxing ring, and still, the undisputed champion. So, after all this conversation, you just wasted 30 minutes of my time to tell me that you still don't see anything that stops him from being the presumptive Republican nominee.
That's right. That's because you're in the wrong frame. You think we're in a frame talking about elections. We're not in a frame talking about elections. The frame is white nationalist cult. Okay, that's the frame we're in.
Right.
So, no.
All right, well, I'm speechless. And Connie, it's, as you know, I quote Connie all the time, even when she's not on this program. I'm always telling other people, other guests, in various conversations, as my friend Connie Rice reminds me all the time, we got to get our frame right. And so oftentimes on this program, I'm trying to assist people to get the frame right for whatever conversation we are in. And I take Connie's point. You got to be in the right frame. So that's the Trump stuff. When we come forward after news, traffic, and sports, a few other things I want to get to with Connie, including let's just stay down south. We go from Florida to Atlanta with Fannie Willis. Let's jump over to Alabama and talk about Tommy Tuberville and Senator Tuberville out of Alabama, and these recent comments defending white nationalists. That's what you're getting in the U.S. Senate now. Senators who are defending white nationalists and white nationalism as just being Americans with different points of view. We'll talk about that. And, of course, as we celebrate this week, the 10th anniversary of Black Lives Matter, Connie is not just a brilliant civil rights lawyer, but a historian on many different levels. And we'll get her take on the impact of BLM 10 years in. A great deal more to talk about with Connie Rice when we come forward after news, traffic, and sports. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
Be sure to like and follow Tavis Smiley at The Real Tavis Smiley and get Twitter updates at Tavis Smiley. The conversation continues when we come forward.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. President Biden says Ukraine's resolve in its war against Russia is something the entire world should model itself after. Speaking at the NATO summit in Lithuania with Ukrainian President Zelensky, the president made a promise to Zelensky that the U.S. is working as fast as it can to get Ukraine everything it needs to fend off Russian invaders. In Michigan, the trial of a former Grand Rapids police officer charged with second-degree murder has been delayed. Prosecutors say that former officer Christopher Scher's actions in shooting and killing 26-year-old African-American Patrick Lyoya while scuffling with him after a pursuit in April of last year was not justified. Scher was to go on trial in October, but that's been pushed off the calendar due to an appeals court case involving the officer. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
There's a brand new crash on the 134 freeway in the Glendale area. It's a two-car collision, 134 westbound at the 5. Not clear which, if any lanes are blocked, but traffic is slow from before the 2 on that westbound 134. Got a new problem on the San Diego freeway in Culver City, northbound 405 before Culver Boulevard. A car has broken down in the right lane. And in Pomona, we have an accident on the 71 northbound before the 10 freeway. You're slow from Holt Avenue.
Staples has great prices on everything you need for back to school. Now save up to 60% on select notebooks, markers, and more. At Staples, school savings are always in session. Offer ends July 29th. Prices may vary in-store and online. School on, save on at Staples.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The NBA approved 2 rules changes for next season that could have a major impact. Coaches will be allowed a second challenge if their first one is successful. Coaches were limited to 1 challenge of a referee's call. The NBA also passed a new flopping rule. Players hit with a flopping charge will get a technical foul. The opposing team will get a free throw attempt and possession of the ball. The NBA experimented with the new flopping rule in the Summer League in Las Vegas. NBA execs were tired of seeing players fall to the floor in an attempt to draw a foul. At least 5 players from HBCU schools were selected in the Major League Baseball draft, which ended on Tuesday. The first HBCU player taken was Nolan Santos, a right-handed pitcher at Bethune-Cookman. Santos was chosen by the Minnesota Twins. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Happy anniversary, KBLA!
KBLA Talk 1580 is celebrating its 2nd year anniversary, but you ain't seen nothing yet.
Always bet on black.
We're KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Maisha Cairo here for KBLA Talk 1580. We're live in Los Angeles at JP Morgan Chase's Advancing Black Wealth Tour. And I'm speaking to some of the attendees today to see why it was so important for them to be here.
Yeah, this is Lathan and Tyler. Main reason that's very important for me to be here is just to leave a legacy for my kids. Black wealth, generational wealth is what we need in our community, you know. Oh, Chase, someone has to take the lead. They're showing, big business like Chase cares, and, they're putting their money where their mouth is at, So it's good to see, big institution like Chase, giving a lifting hand, to the community. And, you got to respect that. It makes me want to bank with Chase and, give them, another look if I go to another institution. I actually see what Chase is doing for the community.
That's right. Chase is doing their part to help advance Black wealth. For more money support, tune in every day from 12 to 2 to KBLA Talk 1580's Midday Money Chain, right here.
I'm James Alexander, a proud member of AARP. 1967, I was 17. That spring, my friends, the Barcades, and I made Soulfinger. It was a hit. Number 3 on the charts. That summer, we became the great Otis Redding's band. First gig, the famed Apollo. That fall, we toured. That winter found me in a morgue identifying the bodies of my bandmates and Otis Redding. My music and their memories bring me joy. The Barcades, forever.
What would you call a joy that is as solemn as it is sweet and knows no bounds? A joy that's beautifully rooted in soul and resilience. This is Black joy, a joy that reflects pride and honor despite every challenge. AARP believes the power of Black joy is limitless, and we celebrate this joy supreme. Join us in celebrating Black joy at aarp.org/Black community.
Attorney Joe Cordell.
Business owners and professionals face special challenges in divorce court. In addition to everything else going on, they have to contend with allegations that they are earning more than they are, coupled with claims on their business or practice itself. Clients with assets depend on their divorce lawyer's skills in these matters, and that's why it's so important to hire someone that has those skills.
1455 Frazee Road, Suite 1050, San Diego, California, 92108. CordellCordell.com.
Do you struggle with occasional nerve aches in your hands or feet? Try Nervive Nerve Relief from the world's #1 nerve care company. Nervive tablets contain alpha-lipoic acid to relieve nerve aches, weakness, and discomfort, plus B-complex vitamins to support healthy nerve function as you age. Live life with less nerve discomfort with Nervive Nerve Relief. Learn more at nervivehealth.com. And try Nervive Pain Relieving Cream to block nerve pain signals at the source. Use as directed.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where hate meets a scholarly match.
Connie Rice is our guest in this hour as we continue talking politics to commence today's program. Before I get to, well, let me go straight to Capitol Hill. We've been down south, Florida, Atlanta, Alabama. We'll get back to Alabama in a second. Let me jump up to Washington right quick, to Capitol Hill. And before we talk about U.S. Senator Tommy Tuberville defending white nationalists as just being Americans with a different opinion, Christopher Wray, Connie, the FBI director, is confronting, as we speak, a political storm, testifying right now before Congress with Republicans who once defended the FBI, now denouncing it as a weapon wielded against former President Donald Trump and his supporters we were discussing earlier. Christopher Wray is appearing for the first time, Connie, before the House Judiciary Committee since Republicans won the House. The committee, led by Representative Jim Jordan of Ohio, said, and I quote, "It will examine the politicization of the FBI under Mr. Wray and Attorney General Merrick B. Garland," close quote. What's fascinating about this to me, as I suspect is fascinating to you, is how the Republican Party, the GOP, has completely flipped its position. As I said, they used to be strong defenders of the FBI and the CIA, etc., and now they've turned on the FBI, denouncing it once again as a weapon being used against Donald Trump. What do you think of this 180 that the GOP has done on the FBI?
Well, because they're in a war against democracy and the rule of law right now, because they can't maintain their power through our system. They can't win elections. So if you can't win elections, what do? You destroy them. Mm-hmm. If the rule of law is to enforce fair election law, and if somebody breaks the law, even if he's your former president, you go after him. They're after the FBI because the FBI is actually doing its job. Mm-hmm. They call anything an attack that's against them. Now, if President Biden had stolen nuclear weapon secrets and so forth and so on, they'd have been pushing the FBI to arrest him summarily and just have the trial right then and there. But this is what the polarization has done. The Republican Party has now become a party that has said that violence is legitimate discourse, that any law enforcement that investigates them and their leaders is weaponized, politicized, and has to be snuffed out. If that law enforcement goes against their perceived enemies, then they back it. Mm-hmm. That's not rule of law. That's authoritarianism. That's fascism. So, we no longer have the GOP, at least the 50% of it that is going along with this sort of MAGA cult level distortion of reality, rejection of rule of law, rejection of constitutional democracy. They're basically saying we are not going to agree to become a multiracial democracy. We don't want that. We're pulling out, and we're going to attack the entire system, even if it means attacking law enforcement, the rule of law, and the Constitution. Yeah. That's what they're doing. So it's all a part of a larger strategy of entrenching minority rule. We are now governed by minority rule. They are not the majority. Those of us who voted for Biden are the majority. But they because of the Electoral College, because of the other structural inequities that were created during slavery, we've structured our governance and our distribution of power in a way that tilts the playing field toward their minority rule. So anyway, it's Yeah. So when you see what's going on in against Christopher Wray, they've turned on the FBI because the FBI is enforcing the law against their leaders.
The irony, as you well know, is that Wray was appointed by Donald Trump back in 2017 after he fired James Comey. He appoints Christopher Wray, and it doesn't matter that he's a Trump appointee. They're still going after him and arguing that this FBI raid on Mar-a-Lago was a search intended to neutralize Trump's chances, his electoral chances in this race for the White House. So just again, go figure. Trump appointed this guy, and now they're going after him and the FBI for going after Trump. I digress on that point. Let me move now. Still on Capitol Hill. Let me move now from the House hearing with Christopher Wray right now to the other side of the aisle, chamber, I should say, the Senate. Tommy Tuberville, Senator out of Alabama, has finally, Connie, said the right thing, which is that white nationalists are racist. He finally got around to saying that yesterday after he had repeatedly suggested that white supremacists, white nationalists are just Americans who hold different opinions. I don't need to press this anymore. I think you understand the frame that we're in. But what do you make of the fact that you have United States senators, even in this moment, in the Senate, defending white nationalists as Americans who have different opinions and only come around to saying what he said yesterday after being pressured by both the left and the right?
Well, I think he's joining Ron Johnson, who asked the question, when did white supremacy become a bad term? And Mandela Barnes almost beat him. If the Dems had put more money, we'd have Mandela Barnes there as a senator.
Yep.
But Ron Johnson and Tuberville, they need to have the white nationalist caucus of the Republican Party. But listen, I agree with the senator.
What part, Connie? What part? What part?
He's absolutely right. Now here's the thing. This is in the all you need to know category. Okay.
Okay.
All you need to know. Remember the great African American black psychiatrist Alvin Toussaint?
Oh, of course, very well. Yeah.
He galvanized all 10 of the African American psychiatrists that existed in the 60s, and they, as a caucus of the American Psychiatric Association, they did a petition to make extreme racism categorized as a mental disorder, a mental disease. And they said, the kind of Dylan Roof lynching, Klan, reign of terror, racial terror, make that kind of extreme racism categorized as a mental disorder and disease. And they made this petition to the National Association of Psychiatrists. You want to know what the National Association of Psychiatrists, which was 97% white at that time? Mm-hmm. They said, well, the problem is anti-black racism is too common an affect in the culture for it to be classified as a disease. Racism is a cultural norm. That was from the American Psychiatric Association. So that's on my list of all you need to know. You don't need to know anything else, right?
Yeah.
All you need to know. It's too common. So here's the thing. When I don't care who you are, when I meet you, my question is, what do you do with the anti-black or racial ideas, racialized ideas, and yes, racism that's in your mind? You can't, if you grow up in this country, it's in the air you breathe. It is the gravity that shapes what you see in this country. And so my question is, what do you do with the stuff that's in your head? And I can ask that question about sexism. I can ask that question at the individual level, prejudice. So it's not a question of whether there's racism or racial thinking or racialized or are there racialized ideas. The answer to that is yes, even though there's massive denial. So I think that what Tuberville is saying, he's actually voicing his own. If he came from Alabama, it's in him. Mm-hmm. So my question is, he has to distort the reality. He knows that he has anti-black racism, and it isn't subconscious. It's conscious. Mm-hmm. But they're fighting for the right to be able to go back to saying, we are racist. We have the right to be racist. We have the right to be anti-black. It's part of our heritage. And we're tired of the civil rights movement saying, we can't, you shut us up, but now Trump says it's okay. Yeah. So they resisted. In the 1960s, they didn't agree They didn't agree with Martin Luther King Jr. They didn't agree to the desegregation laws. They didn't agree to the voting rights laws. Now they're coming back and they're saying, we want to go back to make America white again. And that's what this battle is about. And Tuberman is just kind of voicing what that strain of anti-black racism says. It's more extreme. It's more vocal. It can, it's the range is wide, Tavis. You've got folks with attitudes that they really aren't harmful. They are racial, but they're not harmful. And you've got, on the other extreme, you've got folks like Dylan Roof and the people who will do violence.
It's a fascinating definition of white nationalist, that they are just Americans with other opinions.
Well,
yeah.
Well,
yeah, I get it. Actually, before we come forward, let me just say this. Connie mentioned Alvin Toussaint. I know Alvin Toussaint well, and I want to just give him a shout out right quick since Connie raised the name. If you don't know the name Alvin Toussaint, whatever you think of Bill Cosby, Dr. Bill Cosby, whatever you think of him, it's hard to argue the impact that TV show had, the Cosby Show had for years. You can hate Bill Cosby, you can have issues with Bill Cosby. That's you are entitled to your opinion as an American, like white nationalists, according to Tommy Tuberville. That's not my point. My point is that you can't argue the cultural impact, the social impact that the Cosby Show had for all the years it ran on NBC. And the person who oversaw that show as a psychologist was Alvin Toussaint. Alvin Toussaint, out of Harvard, out of Boston, Cambridge to be exact, was the person who oversaw all the scripts, so that when they wrote these scripts, he's the one that massaged them to make sure that the points that we wanted to get across about black life in America came through in a way that was entertaining but also empowering and arresting. So Alvin Toussaint was the consultant on The Cosby Show for all those years and did an amazing job bringing in some of the best programming I've ever seen. I digress on that point. When we come forward with Connie Rice, we'll talk about BLM 10 years in on KBLA Talk 1580.
A safe place to go loud.
A great place for progressive politics.
KBLA Talk 1580.
The family of Keenan Anderson is suing the city of Los Angeles for $100 million. Maisha Cairo here with your K-Black Minute News, brought to you by CaliforniaBlackMedia.org. Keenan Anderson, a high school English teacher that was visiting Los Angeles from Washington, D.C., was tragically killed at the hands of the Los Angeles Police Department in January of this year. His family, alongside civil rights and personal injury attorney Benjamin Crump and Carl Douglas, have announced a $100 million lawsuit against the city of Los Angeles. Crump and Douglas are representing Keenan Anderson's son, Sincere Anderson, and his mother, Gabrielle Hansel. The family is suing for civil rights violations, assault and battery, false imprisonment, and negligence on the part of the LAPD officers. The family of Keenan Anderson and attorneys Crump and Douglas want it to be known that this is only part of a systemic issue within the fabric of police departments everywhere.
Hey LA, are you feeling the heat? LADWP has rebates up to $225 on new air conditioners to help you beat the heat and save money. Plus, you can sign up for Level Pay to get predictable monthly bills for easy budgeting. Stay cool. Visit LADWP.com/COOL-LA. That's LADWP.com/COOL-LA.
Are you looking to steer your career in a new direction? Driving for Culver City Bus can be your ticket to a long-lasting career with excellent benefits and paid training. Culver City Bus is looking for customer service and safety-minded bus operators to join the growing team. Culver City Bus offers on-the-job training starting at $19.10 per hour, uniform allowance, and health benefits. Culver City Bus is a great employer. Let Culver City Bus connect you with an essential service job. If you enjoy driving, seek real opportunities for career advancement, and passionate about making a difference in the community, then you are invited to join the Culver City Bus team. Start your journey today by submitting an application at culvercity.org/jobs. For more info, visit culvercitybus.com or call live customer service operators at 310-253-6500.
Let's unpack a little bit more with Tavis Smiley. The conversation continues right now.
Connie, I always love glancing at our social media posts and listeners while we're in break, whenever you're on. And as my friend George Wallace says, the people love you, Connie Rice, and there ain't nothing you can do about it. So I'm glad you're enjoying Connie as much as I am and always do. That said, BLM, Black Lives Matter, celebrates its 10th anniversary this week. And every day on our program this week, Connie, we are spending some time talking about the impact this organization has had a decade in. By the way, this Saturday is the People's Justice Festival, where we celebrate the 10th anniversary of Black Lives Matter. It will be all day Saturday from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. In Leimert Park, adjacent to this studio, with performances and a children's village and giveaways and vendors and all sorts of great events this Saturday at Leimert Park as we celebrate again the 10th anniversary of Black Lives Matter and their People's Justice Festival. I am honored, along with Dominic DePrima, to be the main stage host for a decent part of the day. And around 4:30, Cornel West, Green Party presidential candidate, will take the stage for a major address. There are, of course, many other speakers. As a matter of fact, Sabrina Fulton, who's a guest on this program tomorrow. Sabrina is the mother of Trayvon Martin. She's our guest, I believe, tomorrow in the 11 o'clock hour. Sabrina's our guest tomorrow as she heads toward Los Angeles, or may be in studio tomorrow. We'll find out. But anyway, Trayvon's mother and many other mothers will be on stage with us this Saturday as well, as we commemorate and celebrate the 10th anniversary of Black Lives Matter. That said, Connie, 10 years of BLM, what do you make of the impact they've had domestically and internationally?
Well, I've always said that they got nothing but a standing ovation from me. They took a hashtag and galvanized it into a global movement to make Black lives valued. And 100 years of class action lawsuits couldn't achieve that. So you just, I mean, that's something for a hashtag. And, you know? And if you remember, I mean, I'm thinking about this, they galvanized Black Lives Matter hashtag at first into a platform to take the outrage over the Trayvon Martin exoneration or failure to acquit. And they for the Black community to have a platform to organize that anguish and that outrage. And from there, not just to sort of tweet stuff into the air, but to actually create a way to pull people together and have a voice that could transmit a much louder message to make Black Lives Matter and to raise the consciousness of white America about the anti-Black physics in our policing, in our politics, and in our segregated communities that allow these kinds of, the videos of unarmed African Americans being shot over and over and over again in apparently unwarranted circumstances by police. So police violence against unarmed African Americans, that galvanized the community around that, and it eventually, Tavis, it was so effective online, where I'm not. I don't do social media because you have to be social to do it. But in that social media space, this hashtag penetrated white America's consciousness, and because it did, when that Floyd murder was seen in excruciating detail over and over and over again, with people locked in their pandemic living rooms, seeing it over and over and over again, because of the Black Lives Matter had primed white America's consciousness to understand that police aren't always fair to African Americans, that it pierced that presumption of police validity. And when the Floyd video went around, and that's what the Black Lives Matter movement did, is it primed white America's consciousness so that 20 million white Americans got up and marched against police violence. And that's never been seen in this country. I don't think it'll be seen again in this country. And so when you look at last week, the French police killed an Algerian teenager. Hundreds of thousands of French citizens piled into almost all white.
That's right.
Marching in the streets. That's because Black Lives Matter's hashtag created a global movement. So I think it accomplished some things that are astounding. And I think that they dented the politics of Willie Horton, that thin blue line, white fear of black crime that Republicans know all they have to do is say crime, 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 and it means Willie Horton.
Yeah.
And then they scare white voters into voting for somebody extreme. Well, for the first time in the midterms, we didn't see that dynamic work.
Yep.
And I think that that's because Black Lives Matter movement, to make Black lives valued, has dented the politics. And that doesn't mean it won't work again.
Sure.
But I think we saw the impact of that. So there's tremendous effect. Madison Avenue. Did you know that so many black people could be in that many advertisements? It's been 3 years. Almost every ad is African American. I think that the reaction to the Floyd protests plus the Black Lives Matter movement, I think really transformed Madison Avenue. So there are some transformative effects of that movement, and I don't think we can deny it. Now, I have been asked, did they change police culture? And I said...
Hold that thought, Connie. Hold that thought. Did they change police culture? Connie's response to that, not at all rhetorical question when we come forward in a moment.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to here with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
The IRS is the most powerful collection agency on earth. And if you owe back taxes, the news isn't good. The IRS is raising the interest rate it charges on unpaid taxes, and further rate hikes are expected. Most people don't know it, but the IRS adds interest charges on your tax debt daily. So if you owe the IRS today, you will owe even more tomorrow. And it doesn't stop until you get right with the IRS. The good news is, getting right can start with one phone call to Optima Tax Relief, America's #1 tax relief firm. Optima's tax professionals specialize in the Fresh Start Initiative, a powerful IRS program that can save you thousands if you qualify. In fact, the experts at Optima Tax have resolved over $1 billion in tax debt for their clients. Call now for a free consultation.
Call 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Want my secret for how to prep for summer getaways and get-togethers and get everything for less? Kohl's. I just went shopping and saved big on sunny day essentials like tees, tank tops, shorts, capris, swimwear, and beach towels. Because for every one I bought, I was able to get a second for only $1. Plus, I earned Kohl's Cash. So head to Kohl's and find the top styles for the lowest prices. You'll thank me later. Select styles. Offers in July 13th. Some exclusions apply. See store or Kohl's.com for details.
Conversations that matter. You're listening to Tavis Smiley on KBLA Talk 1580.
All right, Connie Rice, 3 minutes left to answer the question that you posed a moment ago. Did BLM change police culture? Have they over these last 10 years?
They've impacted the culture, but they didn't change. They didn't have the kind of impact that I think they wanted. They bifurcated black cops from white cops even more, so they created a division within policing that you can see in polling. I think they kind of galvanized a Blue Lives Matter backlash, which I think is getting primacy now. So I think what they did do is they dented the presumption of police validity. It is part of the mythology of policing. And I know that it made an impact because the police chiefs I work with were astounded. They didn't, it doesn't matter if African Americans riot, protest, rebel. That's built into the model. But when they saw 20 million white people in the streets, that got their attention. That's when it counts in this country. And so I think that they dented the impunity and the imperviousness of policing, and they raised the consciousness of white America that policing in the United States is not across the board fair, and it's not fair in the same way to African Americans.
Do you think with a little more time, they celebrate 10 years this week, do you think with a little bit more time they will be able to successfully do something about qualified immunity?
Probably not, because it involves about 2% of the cases. But the only thing you need to understand about qualified immunity is that if Derek Chauvin, who murdered George Floyd, if the city of Minneapolis had not settled the Floyd family's civil lawsuit, Derek Chauvin would have gotten qualified immunity even though he murdered George Floyd. That's all you need to know about the shield that qualified immunity gives, the way the United States Supreme Court has distorted that doctrine. So I don't see that. I would not make that the hill I die on, because it won't affect. That's not what keeps most of policing impervious from review and from accountability. And I've always said, I said to you on the TV show, Tavis, I said, if you're trying to prosecute cops, it's too late. You've got to change the mindset, the mission. You've got to change the measures of their performance. You have to change their mission. because they're doing what society wants them to do.
Yeah.
And until you change that, you're not going to get a change in policing.
We celebrate Black Lives Matter's 10th anniversary this week. Once again, this Saturday, 12 to 6 p.m. in Lamert Park, adjacent to this studio. Come out and join us for a great day of speakers and events and performances. Going to be a great day. I celebrate Connie Rice every day, and always honored to be in dialogue with her. Connie, we'll talk again soon. Take care. Have a good day.
Thank you, Tavis. Take care.
Appreciate you. Hour 2 of Tavis Smiley after news, traffic, and sports on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. President Biden says Ukraine's resolve in its war against Russia is something the entire world should model itself after. Speaking at the NATO